All right. Another Thursday, which, before I started this entire project, was used for listening to vinyl records and doing dork stuff while working from home, means that I have uploaded a new video. Um, so we are kind of in this interesting spot in terms of the book where it's a batch of little things, and then it leads into um, Pop's concert, which my junior year was like the I don't know, the best concert that I think I ever got to take part in. Like everything came together in terms of the people and the talent and the just my own stuff going along. Um, but there is a little bit of a oh man, which I get to kind of talk about. But it all starts off with a bit of a story of me camping, which, to be clear, I'm not huge on. I just never have been. But when you get a batch of teenage friends together and you throw them in a cabin in the woods, I mean, yes, it's either the building of a horror movie or of just things that you remember. And luckily for me, it's more the latter than the former. So, with that, I give you the little bits of springtime adventure of my junior year. And then after this video, really, I'm going to do one more. It's going to wrap up all the rest of junior year, and then we go right into senior year. Um, where, yes, as has been happening, things change. Um, but that's as a story for like 2 weeks from now, really. So, anyway, hopefully this doesn't go as long as the last one, but you know, quality over quantity, I guess, right? Um, with the words from a poet and a voice from a choir, the Environmental Club was ready for our club trip, which was going to be taken up to the Sierra Ancha area in Gila County, Arizona, on the weekend right before my 17th birthday. We left on Friday the 20th, and we were planning to come back on Sunday the 22nd. Mrs. Dutton had rented 2 cabins for our group, and it was a chance for the group to just like get out of town, enjoy nature, all part of the club name. We'd be doing some hikes, but for the most part, it was just a getaway for our group. And though Mrs. Dutton continued to make it somewhat apparent, she wanted eyes on Meg and I. We were joined by 2 female former students of hers as chaperones, Mrs. Dutton and her husband, and then members of our group. In all, I remember Jackie, Pamela, Eric, Meg, Peter, Corey, Stacia, and myself were the ones going on the trip. Enough where everyone could just kind of fit into the school vans and take off north. Upon getting to the campground, Mrs. Dutton set forth the rules that all of the girls would be sleeping in one cabin, while Eric, Peter, and myself and the Duttons would be in the other one for our 2-night stay. When we arrived, the guys threw our bags into the bedroom that had like a quarter of beds in it, or a quartet of beds in it, and immediately we took off running for the next cabin, which was 2 stories with bunk beds and a few single beds upstairs, a few more beds downstairs, a fireplace, and a huge couch. We sat on the front porch, but there was a back deck as well, and we all just kind of got settled. Mrs. Dutton said that she would take everyone interested on a quick hike around where the cabins were located. Maybe just a quick hour-and-a-half, 2-hour thing. Does anyone want to hang back at the cabins? She asked. I wouldn't mind, Meg said. Me neither, I added. I'll stay too. Corey agreed. Oh no, Mrs. Dutton responded. I'm not leaving just the 3 of you here. I arched an eyebrow as it seemed pretty apparent that we were being singled out. Well, I'm gonna stay, Stacia threw in. Me too, now Eric added. With about half the group willing to stay, Dutton nodded, and okay, fine, we'll be back in a little bit, she said. As the group got some water bottles ready and headed out, the 5 of us who remained all sat out on the back patio. At first we were all talking about school and They were filling me in on band and orchestra tours since four of them were all in band and orchestra together. Meg and I talked about Mrs. Dutton a little bit. Our frustration with how she seemed to treat us coming out. It's been pretty much all year, Meg said. Even when we weren't dating, she just seemed to find us annoying. Like the idea of us being close or whatever just bugged her, I replied. Yeah, Corey said. I don't know what it is because the two of you have never done anything in class. I could see it when she wouldn't let just the three of you guys stay here, Eric added. We all agreed, just seemed weird, but not to let us get us down. It was late afternoon when the group left for the walk, and now the sun had begun to set. And as it did, though, we were pleasantly surprised that it had begun to snow. A light drizzle. But snow. We all stepped off the back porch area and stood in the snow before the girls ran back under the overhang, and Eric and I were still out there. Aren't you guys cold? Stacia asked. Are you kidding? It's nice out, Eric said, and I nodded. You guys aren't even wearing jackets, Corey said, laughing. I don't know, I'd say it's a little warm out here, don't you? I asked Eric, and we exchanged a devilish grin and both took off our t-shirts. Oh my, Corey laughed from the porch. Eric and I playfully swung our shirts over our head like some weird striptease, throwing them, and Meg caught them with a laugh. Eric and I struck a pose, flexing there in the snow, a picture I have a copy of, thanks to Corey taking it. We did a few more poses, and Eric reached out his hand. Care to dance, he asked me, and I obliged. And that's the second picture I know of. Eric and I in position for a tango or some dance, and it elicits laughs and cheers from our friends as we just kind of went through the snow. After a few minutes, we were done goofing off, and Meg handed us our shirts, and we put them on and went inside. After a few minutes, 10 minutes or so, the rest of the group who had gone out on the hike came back, shaking off the bit of snow, and we all sat inside as the Duttons started making dinner. After dinner, we all hung around for a little bit, and, we were just going to figure that the next day was going to be a long one. Mrs. Dutton had hinted at the fact that we were going to be going on a hike, and that we should probably rest up. So the three of us guys bid our good nights and headed over to our cabin, where we all piled into the bedroom. So, how many bugs do you think are in here? Eric said, looking around. Our bedroom was very noticeably less glamorous than anything over in the main cabin the ladies had. Enough to make a decent snack, I responded. Sleep with your mouth closed, Peter laughed. Good night, guys, we heard Mrs. Dutton yell across the cabin. And with that, we went to bed. So, bring the kids along. It's good, clean family fun. The next morning, we all gathered back in the ladies' cabin for breakfast and then began to pack anything we would need for the hike we were taking. With lunches packed and water bottles filled, we took to the road to get to the trail that we were hiking. I wish I could tell you exactly where it was, but I remember it being a paved road trail, pretty popular as we weren't the only ones there. And the technical term for this is, holy fuck, was it on incline. Now, to be fair, I was in a lot better shape in high school than now, but my left knee was actually still a bit problematic for me. But this challenged everybody. Corey, Meg, Jackie, Eric, and I walked in a group at times, and as the hike continued, we would take quick breaks and could see not only our group, but other hikers were doing the same. It's not just me, right? I said, stretching my leg and massaging my knee. No, it's not, Eric said. You started out pretty strong there, I responded, but if even you are slowing down, it's beautiful out here, Jackie said, and she was trying to keep our minds off the incline and the hike. It was another cloudy day, which meant it was nice and cool, and we kept up with the hike. After a few hours reaching the top of where we wanted to be, and we stopped for lunch. With sandwiches and drinks, we sat down, and Mrs. Dutton congratulated us on the walk. I mean, in retrospect, the walk was a beautiful one, as it was just us all going through something together that we also just kind of just took in where we were. When I joined Environmental Club that year, it was to help the club grow, but just a chance to hang out with people I knew and get to know people I didn't. I mean, Jackie was always so wonderful, and we would make time to dance with each other at school dances and say hi in the hall. But with her being a year younger, we didn't really have many options to see each other for long periods of time. But being able to have a memory like this on this trip to look back on, and that's why it always stands out to me. Some of the details might not be as prevalent, but it's certain the people were. Don't worry, the way down is a lot faster, Mrs. Dutton said, a bit of a chuckle as we finished up lunch and took a photo. And, thank fuck she was right. What felt like a multiple hour walk up was like a runaway train going down. With how the incline was, we spent time trying to figure out how we didn't get too much momentum going as we walked, nearly tripping over our own feet on the way down. I remember thinking how it only took us 45 minutes to get down our trek, when it took hours to get up, all of us laughing as we did, and we made it to the bottom and to the van as it started to rain. We dove into the van and drove back to the cabins as the rain came down, and we all piled back into the girls' cabin and started a fire in the fireplace. With hot chocolate getting started and talk about dinner and s'mores were next, the group as a whole started to press the Duttons. Can the guys spend the night here? Was the ask. Mrs. Dutton seemed unsure of the idea, but Peter, Eric, and I kind of piled in. There's an extra room down here with some beds. There's the couch. We could do it without ever going upstairs, Eric said. And it would be nice for all of us to be together, Peter added. Yeah, Pamela threw in. Besides, this is the perfect weather for scary stories, I grinned. Rainy night in a cabin in the woods. I'll think about it, was the response from Mrs. Dutton. After dinner, we were all sitting around. The Duttons had returned to their cabin, and while some of the girls were talking, one of the chaperones asked to talk to me, pulling me aside. Okay, so there is something I need to talk to you about, she said. What's going on? I replied. Okay, there's something I need to tell you. I want to tell you why Mrs. Dutton has been the way she has been toward you and Meg. I was on one of these trips as a student a couple of years ago, and there was a couple who came up and, during the trip, had snuck off and got caught fooling around. Mrs. Dutton was worried that something like that might happen here. We told her it was nothing to worry about, I said. We both did before the trip. I know, but that's why she's not said anything about you guys sleeping over here. I had to think for a minute, and then I just volunteered. What if I stay over there? Eric and Peter could crash here. I'll stay back at the other cabin. If that means that everybody gets to be together and it makes Dutton more comfortable, I'll do it. You would do that? Yeah, of course I would, I said. Let me talk to her, was the chaperone response. The chaperone left and walked over to the next cabin, and after about 10 minutes returned, along with Mr. and Mrs. Dutton, who carried our pillows and blankets. All right, boys, you're over here tonight, Mrs. Dutton said, smiling and putting our stuff on the couch. It elicited a cheer from everyone as the three of us grabbed the pile, threw it into the downstairs bedroom. There were only 2 beds, so I offered to take the couch, moving my stuff back out at bedtime. As we all got comfortable, Mrs. Dutton signaled for me to come out to the porch with her. Yeah? I asked, stepping out. You would have really stayed over there by yourself? She asked. Yeah. If it got Eric and Peter to spend time with the group, yeah. She nodded. Okay, well, you're part of the group too, and you shouldn't be left out. Thanks. And nothing is going to happen, I responded. She smiled. Have a good night. Mrs. Dutton and her husband walked back across to the other cabin, the rain still coming down, and I went inside. Meg and I had done our best to not be too overt in our relationship during the trip, but at this point, we felt okay enough that it was okay to give each other a kiss. As a group, we all settled in with snacks and drinks and listened to the storm late into the night before everybody started going to their rooms. I threw my pillow and blanket on the couch, waved to Meg goodnight. She headed upstairs, shutting off, and I shut off any lights and put out the fire as our second night came to a close. I just want your extra time and your kiss. We all piled back into the van for the drive home. Meg, Corey, Eric, and I were sitting all more towards the back. We joked about the dancing in the snow. Some of the others on the trip lamented missing it. But we, of course, offered to share the photos once, we got it. Though, probably not something we would share for the yearbook. As we pulled into a gas station on the way down, we all piled out to get snacks and drinks for the way while the Duttons filled up the van with gas. I had gone in to grab Meg and Corey and I drinks, and when I came out, everyone had bunched around the back of the van. And as I walked forward, they burst out singing Happy Birthday. As they finished singing, they brought out from behind them a pair of small cupcakes that they had bought from inside, singing Happy Birthday to me and one of the chaperones, who had birthday in a couple of days. When we were done, we blew out the little candles and ate the cupcakes, receiving some hugs. Meg gave me a kiss, so we climbed in the van and headed back down to the valley. As we did, we cycled through music to find, coming upon one of the stations playing current music, but to our surprise, all they were doing was playing Prince's Kiss on repeat. Every couple of playings through, there was a quick promo explaining a format change and that the station would now be referred to as Kiss FM. So the playing of the Prince song for the rest of the day before the changeover was part of their promo. So here you have a van full of teenagers singing parts of Prince all the way back down to Phoenix. Not that we needed an excuse, but, Meg and I would every once in a while take a little break to actually do the song entitled. Okay, weird edit. I got really tongue-tied on this next part, so let's see if I can hit it this time. When we got back into town, Meg and I hung out for a little while before I went home. As I walked through the door, along with being happy to see me, my parents asked how the trip was. I filled them on the hellacious hike, the fact we got some snow, and the time spent with friends. Okay, did you see any of the excitement? My dad asked. What do you mean? I asked, puzzled. It's been on the news the last few days. Apparently they were searching for someone up there, my mom added. Like, missing? I responded. Like on the run, my dad replied. They've been up there searching for the last few days. You might have been camping 10 miles from a manhunt. I hadn't heard a thing about it, because at the time, cell phones weren't exactly a thing. And I don't know if my parents were pulling my leg or not. But if not, then that adds to the story. The big horror guy in a cabin in the woods with his teenage friends, where there may or may not have been some maniac on the run thing going on a bit of a rainy weekend. Insert spooky music here. Getting up the next morning and getting ready for school, I woke up to a birthday card from Sarah. I opened the card to find a kid in a pair of khaki shorts and a blue and white button-up waving, saying, "Another birthday, brother," and then on the inside it read, "Another year closer to dressing like Dad." I laughed as she came out of her room, taking pride in the card. I read the rest of it. Haha, it's true. Wow, 17. You're an old man. Grin. Love ya. And she signed it. Am I wrong? She asked as she slung her backpack over her shoulder to go downstairs. You're wearing an REO Speedwagon t-shirt. Yeah, and? I asked. You ever gonna like current music? She asked as I followed her down the stairs. You know what? Maybe in 20 years I'll give Hanson a try. I responded playfully. Uh-huh, happy birthday, love you, have fun at Downbeat, she said as we hit the bottom of the stairs. My mom gave me a hug and a kiss, my dad a wave. and I grabbed my wallet and headed out the door. Turn that dial all the way. Shoot me like a rocket into space. While building towards pop concert and prom, Meg and I had really been spending a lot of time together. Our relationship had been bolstered by the fact that we had been such close friends, but now we just spent pretty much all of our time together. We went to a movie with her mom and sister. I started to get to know her family better. Her mom and I would, sometimes clash, but I did and still do have a lot of affection for her family. To this day, one of the things that I've always kept with my REO Speedwagon collection is a sticker that her dad bought for me from an airport when he was on a trip. It had meant so much to me that he thought about buying it for me that it's a treasured part of my REO Speedwagon collection. My parents and sister were also very happy to see Meg whenever she would come over, and we were lovingly referred to by my dad as Megamat whenever he would see us. Going to movies with friends, parties at Crystal's, or just nights to drive around or watch movies in my room were commonplace. I hadn't made it a habit of sharing my writing. Even though everyone knew I wrote zombie stories, very few had actually seen them. With Meg, though, I shared my writing, and she would take time to read it and give feedback and edits to my work. Meg would also get involved with my miniature painting, creating and painting the character of Hasburg the Goblin, who would go down in legend amongst our group after a game where he single-handedly killed a multi-wound dragon monster. We rewrote the rules for goblins just for him to pay homage to the greatness of this miniature that is still whispered in legend amongst us when we game. We shared little romantic things, as a signal. We'd squeeze each other's hands 3 times for I love you, and 4 times for I love you too. She would sign her notes or letters to me, forever yours faithfully, or faithfully yours, as a nod to our shared song, Journeys Faithfully, and the memory we shared at that concert. She would do this cute thing where she would tell me, I love you so much, with her voice going high with the so. Meanwhile, I was struggling to hold in the surprise I had planned for Pops, because I am fucking horrible when it comes to keeping surprises. This is no exaggeration. I struggle anytime I am tasked with keeping a surprise. I can do it, but the agony. Young romance and love also keys into conversations in the future. Sure, they can be youthful, naive maybe, but that's part of love in this stage of life. It's part of the dream. So we planned what a future could look like, and one of these such things came from what started as just an innocent enough conversation over a movie trope. Have you ever noticed that in movies or TV shows, when someone invites someone in for coffee at the end of a date, it probably means sex? Meg asked. I laughed. Yeah, I've noticed that. I wonder how that got started, she asked. You know what, though? It does create an idea for, like, a part of a house, that kind of thing, I replied, and I pulled out a piece of paper and a pencil and I started to sketch something. Meg sat on my leg as I continued drawing. Think of it as a coffee room. She laughed. I kept drawing. Okay, so you walk through the door here, right? I said, explaining it. Wooden floor, railing on your right, goes sort of around like this. Table for 2 over here, then a few steps down, maybe a little dance floor. Sound system in the corner, and a floor-to-ceiling window on this side. So you get a romantic view, music, dancing. Mm-hmm, Meg said. And then a spot for dinner. I got it. Okay, then there's the carpet area here, the L-shaped couch, table, TV. I continued to draw it. Put in one of those lounge chairs for more intimate cuddling and a fireplace in the corner, she said. Then another window over here. Maybe it goes out to the balcony. Across the way here, a bathroom, dual sinks, and a nice shower, I proposed. A bath. A deep, large bathtub. Showers are nice, but a tub is better, she responded. I scratched out the shower, started putting in the bath. And then outside, a bed. I responded. For when it's time for coffee, Meg added. I grinned at the last bit. The coffee room. Oh, I would want to put this in our house, she said, and we exchanged a kiss. I put in the coffee room sketch in a notebook with my writings, which I had continued to write in earnest. Through junior year, more zombie stories, especially feeling so positively about our friend group, my relationship with Meg, and just a feeling creative burst. Meg grabbed a piece of paper, drew a note, a simple "I love you," with love being replaced by a heart, signed her name, drew a little purple flower on it. As we left to go get something to eat, she taped it on the side of my computer. "So you don't forget," she said with a smile. "If it were easy as fishing, you could be a musician." The week of Pop's concert was where I leapt into being busy, putting together a tech crew, but also being faced with a change in how we prepared for the concert and something that would affect how the concert itself would go. The tech crew planned for this concert was absolutely stellar. It was Zan, Putman, David, Sherry, Ron, and myself, and we were all ready to go. And on the first day of rehearsals, that Monday, we all gathered in the auditorium to go over staging when Wendy walked in. "Tech crew," she announced with some flair. "Yes, boss," we all jokingly snapped to attention and saluted. "What is it, Captain?" I asked from the stage. "All right, so we're having the concert recorded on night 2, she said. "So you'll be in charge of getting things on and off the stage on night 1, but on night 2, all you guys will have to worry about getting things on and off the stage. Sound will be handled at the soundboard by the recording group." "What?" Putman asked. "The night of the recording, you guys won't have to worry about the sound part. It'll all be the recording team. You shouldn't even have to do mic checks," she replied. "Oh, okay," was the general reaction. "So just like moving furniture, instruments, and mic stands?" David double-checked. "Yep, plug the mics in if needed, but they should be good to go from there," Wendy reiterated. "You got it," Zan responded. "We'll keep running it through the rehearsals though, right?" I asked. "Yeah, that won't change. So we've got the audition acts coming in pretty soon so you can get that set up," she said, and she handed out a schedule with when the audition acts were coming in. "Anyone who comes with their own guitar, band, or stuff, that isn't ours. You don't set it up. Not tonight, not the night of the shows." We all nodded in understanding and began setting up the risers for the eventual choir rehearsals later in the night. We also wrote down a quick dinner order, pooled money together for a pizza, knowing it was going to be the first in a very long series of nights. As fellow choir members arrived for rehearsals, we went through what setup needed. Mic checks, people singing quick parts or the entirety of their songs to get a feel for the stage and how they wanted to perform. I skipped my rehearsal and we went right into the choir rehearsals as each choir arrived. That Wednesday, full dress and tech rehearsal for the show. Wendy had also reached out to 2 students from the drama department to be MCs for the event, introducing each act, doing a little dialogue where needed for stage setup for the bigger acts and the bigger choirs. As rehearsal came to a close, it was here where we noticed the sound group who would be recording the second night of the concert arrived to look at the sound equipment. Wendy reiterated that our team would be handling the sound for the first night of the concert, but the recording night would just be moving risers, the piano, putting the mics out on the mic stands. Sound would be handled. We understood, but something about it all just felt off. And in conversation, none of us could shake it. The recording group never tested the equipment around us, never wanted to hear anything on it. They looked at it, talked, and then left. That night, after a nearly 15-hour day at school between downbeat and the rest of the day in rehearsal, I sat down at my desk and pulled a piece of paper out of a notebook. I queued up some music and I listened while I wrote. When I was done, I folded it up, wrote Meg's name on it, and put it inside of one of the concert programs for the next night. I grabbed my clothes for the next night's performance. That red REO Speedwagon tank top and a pair of denim shorts along with an outfit for downbeat. Folded them up and put them in that beat-up Olympic bag. And I got ready for bed. As I did, my sister walked up the stairs and passed by my door on the way to her room. "You ready for tomorrow, Mouse?" I asked her. "Better believe it, are you?" she asked back. "Ready as I'll ever be," I said. "And we're in luck. No Hanson acts on the show." "Shut up, butthead," she said, playfully sticking out her tongue at me, and headed into her room. The sounds of rebellious bop could be heard faintly through the wall, and I laughed. "Well played, Sarah. Well played." As tech crew all arrived on the first night of the concert, we were all dialed in and ready to go. Jumping up on stage, doing the time warp tradition, I felt electric, ready to be part of one of the coolest concerts I could think of as a choir kid. I'd seen all the different acts perform, and it was without a doubt going to be stellar. The mix of styles and people and songs, along with all the choirs doing their sets, it was going to be a fun night of music. As final quick spot checks for acts were on the docket before the concert downbeat arrived to go through our set. We had a bit more of like this calypso high energy feel with Deo, Tico Tico, and that would set up for jazz pieces. The very thought of you, I'll be seeing you. It was during our practice of Deo and Tico Tico that's what started out as something fun and a bit of a joke became something that brought us together even more. For Deo, Brian would be doing some vocal percussion along with us singing, Brandon hitting the, higher parts with a bit of comedy, and David and Rob taking the low notes. That left Steven, Scott, and myself to do the solos, while the ladies did some background vocals. After finishing a run through the song and Wendy getting the band ready for Tiku Tiku, Brian just started to freestyle, and as he did, we all started to join in. Brandon added animal sounds, I added more vocals, David went low, the girls threw in vocals, and we spent a few minutes just freestyling and cheering each other on, coming to an end with Brian and I softly singing a little bit of I Can See Clearly Now. When we were done, Wendy came around the piano and looked at us. What was that? She asked, a bit surprised. Us messing around, Brian responded, and we all nodded. Okay, listen, Wendy said. You guys were sounding great and having fun, and if you want, I'd like you to do something like that between the two songs, okay? Just have fun with it. We all nodded and kept working on our practice, finishing up, and then practices for each choir continued. While we talked about ideas for the freestyle, we also seemed to just want to do whatever just hit us in the moment. Zan, Putman, and I got the stools ready off stage for when I'll Be Seeing You would be sung as well, and with a final pep talk from Wendy, we all made sure to put any costumes or clothes we needed for our songs in the choir room or backstage. About 30 minutes before the show, Wendy gave the okay to open the doors, and tech crew were on it. We had volunteers from the choir to hand out programs, and when Corey arrived, I handed her the program I had, with Meg's letter in it. Don't let her see the program until I come out, I said. Can you do that? Oh, you got it, she said, with her ever-present smile. I can't wait. When do you go on? After intermission, I replied. Ooh, you're just gonna make her wait, she responded. I shrugged, grinning. Just how it worked out. Thanks, Corey. I turned and headed back inside. Zan and Putman were waiting for me, and we christened David the honorary tech crew chief for his final duo of concerts for his choir career. The MCs from the drama department arrived, going over a bit of their last-minute notes, and we set up their mic, and the lights flashed, signaling a few minutes before the concert would start. With one last walk through, our tech crew team took our places backstage, me handing the outline plan clipboard to David, and we hit the lights. 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. May 3rd was the first night of Pop's concert. When the concert began in earnest, the choirs were definitely ready. Sarah, Ashley, and Encore did their songs, clad all in black, and I cheered for them from off stage. Men's chorus did the Girls, Girls, Girls medley in jeans and white t-shirts, which made me think that the true outfit of a choir freshman and sophomore guys was that, and it made me miss the jean jacket. Shantae came out in poodle skirts for their medley of It's My Party, Hey Mr. Postman, and Baby Love. And acapella as the closer, and with acapella as the closer, it was time for Downbeat to get ready to lead us into intermission. As I mentioned before, this group was so immensely talented, and since it was Pops, we could eschew the usual tuxes and choir dresses, with the ask for us to still find something, semi-dressy to wear, and our group did not disappoint. The photo of us from that concert added to the choir yearbook to this day makes me grin at what a good-looking group we were. As we took the stage, the ladies stepped out on the risers, all coordinated black skirts or dresses. The guys, we were a mismatch of dress shirts. I took my mic and stood by Brian. I was dressed in a pair of black pants, dark blue t-shirt, and I had a black overshirt on. With a quick mic check, Wendy gave us the nod, and I blew the pitch pipe. Day-o, day-o, daylight come and me wanna go home, Scott started. Brandon, interjected with his next line, a little bit goofy in his inflection. And then Brian started his vocal percussion, Rob and Dave doing the low bass background, and the ladies coming in with Daylight Come and We Wanna Go Home in between lines. I started the song off, and then Steven came in, all the while Brandon repeating his portion as well. We had fun singing out the lyrics, and me, we're talking about working for rum, and in a nod to my own fear, talking about a tarantula, which, of course, then all of a sudden reminded me of Kiki and her guard spider. When we finished, Brian added some vocal improvisation that sounded like wind through the trees, and we all looked around, confused, adding to the fun. As the audience began to burst into applause, Brian kicked off our freestyle. With me, only a few note counts behind him, the ladies came down from the risers, interspersing themselves between the guys in spots, and Emily stood beside me, while Kate stood a few feet away. David and I smiled across the way, and I made a goofy face to Laura as the ladies added a bit of a cat call, hey, hey, to their improv, a callback to an inside joke that Downbeat had shared throughout the year. As members began to quiet down and end their vocal percussion in a bit of a wave, it came to Brian and I, me shutting down like a robot, and he finalized with a drum crash. We immediately launched into Tiku Tiku, which admittedly we went into fast. On the recording of the second night especially, you can hear Wendy clap a beat to try and slow us down, but we were too fired up. We fired through the song, and when it came time for the band to play their own part, we all took a breath while realizing how fast we had been going, and listened and added a bit of freestyle. When we finished the song, we were all energized, but you know what? We were also maybe a little winded. We exchanged laughs and grins as we lined up more with our sections for the slow and emotional dance standards. The very thought of you, with Brian and Laura each taking a solo. As the song came to an end, we juniors stepped off, grabbing the assorted stools for our seniors, and I placed David's stool down and gave him a respectful nod. As Becky, Laura, Tamara, Liz, Tatiana, Scott, Rob, and David sat on their stools, Shell, Stephen, Brian, Brandon, Emily, Kate, and I took our places behind them. As the song reached its crescendo, like the year before with Blaine, I put my hand on David's shoulder, and I could see the emotion hitting the seniors, and it was still the unwritten rule: juniors hit the notes. And with that final U, I hit the bass note, and as the applause rose, we gave our graduating seniors a hug, and as the applause came to an end, we headed to intermission. Take my arms, that I might reach you. During intermission, there was a chance to pop out and say hi to friends and family, so most of us did just that. We'd already set up the stage for the next act when we came back from intermission, so I hopped off the stage to see Meg and Corey and our mutual friend Dan, who had all come to see the concert. They won't let me see the program, Meg said. I know, I responded slyly. Emily and Kate will come up soon, though, if you wanted to know. And you? She asked. I shrugged with a bit of a grin. When I do. She gave me a playful shove and then a kiss, and then I climbed back up on stage. After our 10-minute intermission, we signaled the lights and got ready, Zan and I taking our spots backstage together, joined by Sherry, as Putman, Ron, and David moved along to the other side of the stage. While during intermission, those of us in the tech crew, who were also doubled in a cappella, had changed into most of their 80s garb, while I stayed in my dress clothes. As everyone took their seats, we moved along with the second half of the show, which just had amazing acts and would end with a cappella's 80s medley. And listen, when I said about this concert that I felt electric, everything on that first night of this Pops concert flowed, and the acts were amazing. David D. and Corey G., two freshmen, did Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven, while a quintet did the Jackson 5. Tamara, Shell, two guys who weren't in choir that year, Stephen Carter, who had been with us sophomore year, and another friend of theirs did an amazing Grace. Brian was part of a band to perform a song. Andrea, also part of a band to do a song. Tatiana and her family did a mariachi performance. But there were two that always stood out. And to this day, I will listen to them from time to time just for the absolute power of it. Francesca H. did an absolutely and just amazingly spectacular, jaw-dropping performance of At Last. This is not hyperbole. When we heard it that night, the entirety of the backstage crew looked at each other and uttered, "Holy fucking shit." She was only a few words in before the crowd cheered. We were absolutely glued to watching her, and the audience was captivated. She filled the auditorium with a powerful voice, and when she was done, we all popped with applause. When she came backstage, all we could say was, "Wow." And it was a great reminder not only of the talent this choir had, but also the reminder of why I signed up for it in the first place. Music could make you feel everything you wanted or needed to. And this was proof. Further proof is in Emily and Kate's performance. To give a bit of context, it is the one that when I went through my CD collection a few years ago and began loading loading the choir music on social media for people to check out, it was the most requested song from choir alumni to see if I actually had it. And even though the second night of the concert, the recording night, had its issues, and Lord did it, nothing could take away from what these two did together. The first night of the concert, I had the honor of getting their mics ready for them, and Emily's mother joined them on stage to play guitar. The three of them took the stage, and when they got settled, began singing "The Sound of Silence" by Simon and Garfunkel. It was just the two of them singing, and Emily's mom playing. And backstage, just out of curtain, I stood there mesmerized. Zan came up behind me, and Putman and David ran from backstage, the other side of stage, to watch with us. The power and emotion in their singing is one of those sounds from high school I remember. I don't need the recording to hear it. It's seared into my brain and heart, and it did it quick. When they were done, the crowd reacted with absolute love of what they heard, and after they were done, I came out to clear the stage. I could barely contain how happy I was. Happy and honored to hear them and know them and call them friends. I will, to this day, listen to either Francesca's or Emily and Kate's version of those songs over the original or any other cover. Anytime. And I don't care how biased that sounds, I will die on this hill. As I got rid of one of the extra mics, I walked backstage, and Zan, Putman, and David all smiled. "You ready?" Zan asked, handing me a mic stand. "If not, I'll die trying," I said, and grabbed the mic stand from him, turned on my heel, and walked on stage. And you can tell everybody that this is your song. So all we have here on the program, it says "your song," one of the MCs said, turning to the other. "Are you singing?" "No, are you?" he responded. "No, so whose song is this?" was the response. I walked on stage, carrying the mic stand, set it down, center. I moved over to the edge of stage, plugged in a mic, hearing the short pop. I looked into the crowd and could see Meg, Corey, and Dan. I smiled, and Corey handed the program to Meg. "Okay, so the brunette in the front row, it's your song," one MC. "The blonde in the back, yours," the other. As they continued, I looked back at Wendy, who shrugged her shoulders and just gave me a grin. I was buying time for whatever the MCs were doing to finish. Putting the mic on the stand and adjusting the height, but I was done. I finished the setup, took a couple steps like I was going to walk off stage. But then I turned and grabbed the mic. "No, guys, sorry," I said, cutting him off. "This is Meg's song." "Aww!" came a collected voice from the crowd, and I looked over to the sound system where Putman stood, then over at Wendy. "Ready. Let's do it." With that, the piano intro to Elton John's Your Song began, and I turned to face Meg. The song is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. It's simple, it's emotional, it's full of love. Faithfully might have been our song, but this one was truly my 17-year-old self's dedication to her. The lyrics I also connected with, because as a singer at heart who didn't play any instruments, doing this for her was the only thing I could think of. Remembering that sometimes, per that song more than words, it was sometimes action above the words, and I wanted to do both. I know it's not much, but it's the best I can do. My gift is my song, and this one's for you. As the chorus started, I caught a glimpse of Zan and Putman in the corner of my eye, looking out from that side stage area, but I never turned away from where I could see Meg. As the second verse started, I pulled the mic off the stand and walked to the stage so I could see her better. There was an inside joke between me and Meg. I could never remember her eye color, and that was in the song. A bit higher notes than my usual bass and baritone voice was usually comfortable with, but thanks to that little bit of that burst of adrenaline, I hit the notes I needed to, and returned to the mic stand, putting the microphone on the holder and finishing the song. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is while you're in the world. I love you, Meg, I said as the piano came to an end. I unplugged the microphone, picked up the mic stand, and walked off stage, trying to play it cool like nothing happened. But my heart was thundering. I could hear the audience applaud and the awes again behind me, and I put the mic stand backstage, handed the microphone to David, who ran back on stage as the lights went down to plug it in for the next act to get ready. The guy stood there, and I grabbed my 80s stuff to change, and Xandar caught my arm. You may need to go out there, bro, he said. What do you mean? I asked. I can see Meg, and she's in tears. You might need to go out there, he repeated. Fuck. Acapella's on after this song, I said. Keep an eye out, and I'll change quick, and if she's still crying, I'll go out there. I ran back to the dressing room, switching into a pair of shorts and my t-shirt, and as I came out, ran into other acapella members who were coming backstage. And the first to catch me was Emily, who cheered me on for performing for Meg and took such joy in seeing Meg and I together and the love we had for each other. It relieved a bit of the nerves that had collected over the weeks of planning, to see that Emily was so happy for us both. It was perfect, she said. Thanks, I responded, and I moved back to my spot with the tech crew. Meg's fine, Zan said, putting my mind at ease. Okay, great, thanks, I said. I was a bit relieved, and as the final solo act came to an end, it was now Acapella's turn. It's true, we'll make a better day. Just you and me. Surrounded by a great group of musicians and friends, with about a dozen of them dressed as the assorted singers they would be portraying, I was having the time of my life. And we took the stage. As we mixed up sections, Emily and I stood on risers together, her dressed in light like 80s fluorescent colors, and me in a pair of breakaway like workout pants and shorts, and depending on the night, my REO or Journey shirt. Putman was dressed as Kenny Rogers, Danielle was dressed as Cyndi Lauper, Brian is Bruce Springsteen, Brandon M. is Michael Jackson, Brandon is Willie Nelson, and more. While the choir would sing the chorus of We Are the World together, all the lines and verses were broken up, so about 12 or 15 would have solos as different artists. We had so much neon and day-glow colors, hair was permed, leg warmers were worn, we pretended to have headphones on, the audience burst into laughter as we came out and got into character. We swayed, we had someone as Stevie Wonder who walked up to the microphone. We were just being goofy. On the recording, you can hear the fun everyone is having. We're all in characters, we're singing a cheesy 80s song, and everybody is acting the part. We are not taking ourselves seriously. And you can hear us smiling, the audience laughing and cheering with each character portrayal. And as the chorus would come up, we would belt it with no worries of staying in tune. And that was Directional by Wendy. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day. Just you and me. And since the song is this well-known charity song, as we continued, we'd wrap our arms around each other and sway. Emily and me, joined by Zan and Kate and David and Crystal and other members of the choir, as we got to the final rounds of the chorus, we all began to walk off stage, getting quieter and quieter as the band played us out. The crowd erupted in cheers, and the band immediately begins the next song. And as The Heat Is On, from the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack, started, we all went out into singing it. There were no solos for this, just joint singing and choreography. And the one thing about the song that I will say is severely missing was having a saxophone player, because this song has one of the best sax solos that seem to be so prevalent in 80s music. As we finished the song and the crowd cheered, Emily, Annie R., and I walked up to the microphones. The grand finale was here. And Emily stepped up to the microphone first, singing the first 4 lines to Flashdance. As she stepped back, Annie and I stepped up, her taking the melody and I the harmony, as we completed the next 4 lines. The choir jumped in and the Flashdance was on. And while you would never, ever confuse us with trained dancers, the choreography was there, and I mean, honestly, it was energetic. The ladies had their own showcase, the guys had ours as well, ending with a high jump kick that some of us may or may not have done a Karate Kid crane kick to. This was not going to be the most technically sound singing performance that would have ever won us awards. What it was an absolute fuck ton of fun. And again, the recording does capture that. With a final, what a feeling, yeah! We all crowded to the center of the stage. A mass of bodies, tired, energetic, and happily together. The crowd shot to their feet as we stood up, exchanging high fives and hugs. In the corner of my eye, I caught a figure running toward the ramp on the side of the stage. "Make way," Putman said in a not quite but almost shout as Meg bowled into me on stage, hugging me. Was it an okay surprise? I asked. She kissed me, so I figured that was the answer to that question. One of the things that was kind of neat, another aspect of the choir all in it together, and the band playing into the camaraderie, was the band continues to jam a bit of Flashdance as we all began to clear the stage. Here we are, a group of tired teenagers in 80s outfits, moving risers, wrapping up microphones, and on the recording, you can hear laughter, continual singing, and movement as we all just work together. While we were in the tech crew, we're always happy to do it ourselves. The entire choir taking a line from We Are the World to Stand Together as One, cleaned off the entire stage in less than 3 minutes before jumping down and joining the other choirs and parents and audience members in celebrating a successful concert. And that is something that still stands out to me. After the concert was officially over, we all checked in with friends and family. I complimented Marianne on her guitar playing for Emily and Kate and how much I loved it. I got compliments on my song, and after checking with my parents, Meg and I went for a drive. We stopped at the park and went for a walk. I'm really glad you liked the song, I said as we held hands. It was perfect, and the note, and the you not remembering my eye color part, she said, smiling. We stayed at the park a while before we made our way to the parking lot where, funny enough, her sister was waiting. She'd been passing by, saw Meg's car, so we chatted for a bit, and then we were back on our way, getting something to eat, and then headed home. Because we did have school the next day, and one more night of Pop's concert. But here is where I end with a bit of the, well, fuck. The second night of Pop's concert went fine, but nowhere near how the first night went. And a lot of that was due to the sound. Whatever happened on the second night with the recording, things just didn't work. My CD came in at a higher volume or higher sound than it should have, meaning my voice was higher and not as full force for the recording. It doesn't sound right. Emily and Kate got screwed the worst because their microphones don't turn on until almost 4 lines into the song. Kate's doesn't turn on until she's actually singing a duet part with Emily. There's scratches and feedback on a couple of the recordings. And while there is still so much good stuff on the recording, it just sucks that the awesomeness that was that first night concert was missed. And this may be petty, and this may be teenage ego, but it's another hill I will fight and die on. Our tech crew didn't fuck anything up on the first night, but maybe being pulled off sound for the second night seemed to have an effect. It could also be why, for each recording the next year, the tech crew was in charge of everything but hitting record. And with that, and some interesting edits, because behind the scenes stuff, I had to film this over 2 separate filming times. We are done with the choir season of my junior year, and truly what was the most fun, coolest concert I was part of in all of my Mountain Point choir history. With all of the problems of the second night, if I had a time capsule that could have recorded that first night, video, audio, backstage like it was a freaking rock and roll documentary, I'd love it. We were just amazing. And yes, it does help that a lot of the stuff we did was 80s and everybody got into it. But everybody who performed that night were some of the most talented people I've ever heard in my life. And I don't care how biased that sounds. But I've got, looking at it, 1 or 2 more videos left in junior year. Just depends on how much I want to record in one. And then we hit senior year. And as many people know, when you hit high school and you hit senior year, you get senioritis and everything goes downhill, right? You're rolling to the end. For some of us, it goes downhill for entirely other reasons. And that story's important too. But until then, be good to yourself. And always, keep on rolling.